Hey Jeff, it's the Friday 15. You know what that means. It must be Friday.
And we have 15 minutes to have some chatter. So, what do you want to chatter about this week, Paul?
You know, I want to chatter a little bit about what the world is like for folks who are starting their career.
Okay.
Folks, you know, maybe coming out of school, although, it used to be we would talk a lot about college, it might be a technical school, et cetera. But you're coming out of school, and it used to be that there were just jobs, entry level jobs that were there. And of course, that would be how you'd climb the ladder, and there went your career. And, I don't need to mention this to you or our listeners. There's a lot of stuff that's going on right now that seems to be interfering with that. And AI is, usually at the top of the list. So I guess I wanted to ask you, what do you think about some different models or org structures that might be in our future with AI being introduced into the work world?
Well, I mean, I definitely there is a lot of talk about like is the entry level world, entry level job shrinking, disappearing, whatnot, and I think that there is a feeling that that is the case. And if we're looking at from a org design perspective, you can see that there's like it could be a model that it's a diamond, right? Now we have very few true um,
Right.
entry level jobs now because everyone wants some experience. So now we're getting that diamond
Right.
versus the hourglass, where we still have a lot of like lower level positions that are maybe engaging with AI, but not as much. And I still think that's being worked out in different ways or in different industries. I don't think it's sort of one size fits all. I think the challenge about entry level jobs, I think we instantly go to think about AI as replacing jobs. And I think what is really happening is that AI is replacing the learning experiences inside the jobs. In other words, if we think about what a entry level job was historically, you come in out of school or into the market, and that was the job where you learn things that you got a chance to understand, whether through rotation, whether through just the basics of this particular career, and then you start to build on that. And a lot of the things that you were developing that learning on were just the most basic aspects of the job. And those basic routine aspects of those career paths are now easily being taken over by AI. So AI isn't it really about replacing the job, it's replacing the learning curve. And I think that that becomes the challenge.
Mhm.
So if we can figure out if there's a different learning path, then I think we have a better sense of what entry level could be, right? So if
Mhm.
we accept that, then I think we have a a optimistic path and a pessimistic path. But the question is whether or not we believe that we can replace that learning with something new, or no, people have to come in and learn the basics, and that's it. So
Mhm.
before I maybe go into two paths, I'll ask if that makes sense to you. If you yourself are optimistic or pessimistic, because is your entry level glass half full or half empty? Oh,
Well, I got to tell you, Jeff, on a personal level, I'm glad I am further into my career at this point. There's a lot more unknown factors right now. I would think if I were entering the job market as someone who is entry level, someone who's new, um,
I
and
mean, you're what,
maybe that's.
you're 22, 23.
I'm actually up to 27 now. I
Oh,
know you can't tell.
no,
It's
okay.
the
I'm sorry.
Botox. Yeah. Um, And we should probably have a separate conversation about what it's like, what the org design and technology is doing for those later in career. But let's go back to the entry level situation. To me, you talked about the diamond shaped org structure and the hourglass shaped org structure. And what strikes me about that, it's almost like there's two different, I don't know if it's optimism or pessimism in my mind, so much as it's what type of work do we think AI is going to be able to do? So there are some articles, a recent article that was in Fortune magazine, talking about AI as the supervisor, that somehow we're, individuals, uh, presumably this is like the hourglass, right? So this is, I guess, the optimistic view for entry level folks. So there's going to be a lot of folks doing things and then sending it up, that somehow being trimmed or supervised, or some sort of oversight that's done through an AI mechanism. I, Nothing comes to mind. I can't imagine the type of work that would be, but it seems to me like it would be more. Yes, you in the back. Do you have an answer to that?
Well, I just said like there was just an article about Amazon warehouses doing that exact
Uh,
thing. So they're using AI managing the workflow, the processes of the manual workers on the floor. So it's somehow maximizing the efficiencies of these workers. So that would be an example where you can't easily replace the human factor, but you can use AI managers to
mhm.
help the efficiency. Now, that article was also talking about how that pilot is not going very well, but that's just
Right, right.
an example of how that might be played out.
Well, and if we wanted to put an optimistic spin on that, it's early days, and maybe that process could work over time. I don't know. The
Yeah.
opposite of that would be that diamond shape that we were talking about, where AI is doing the quote unquote grunt work. And now you've got folks who have to edit and check for slop and, you know, maybe even think about how should I apply what AI could do to something different. Um, so I so anyway, just to finish that thought, my guess is it's got something to do with the complexity of the entry level job. So in the case you talked about with Amazon, this is probably a lower complexity job. I mean, things have to be done physically, but it sounds like they're trying to make the strategy of who does what when, or what are the routes, or whatever the scheduling, all of that stuff. Now, why not just have a computer do that? So that makes sense to me in some shape or form. There's another thing that you mentioned though, and maybe this is where you're going. So I don't know, if I don't want to rush you to a different topic, but um, what is that career ladder? So let's say I'm fortunate enough to have that entry level job. How am I going to get the next rung? And do I even care anymore? That's, I guess, a separate topic. Are people motivated in this hourglass and now diamond shaped world as compared to the classic pyramid that, for about a century or more has been the design of an organization? So the thought was, oh yeah, you're going to stay here maybe forever and climb your way up until you're a high ranking executive. And I'm not convinced that people want to do that as much anymore. And as we are talking, I don't even know if that exists anymore. So I've thrown a lot at you. So maybe you want to go back to what does an entry level job look like? And I'm throwing, well, what's the next job once you've got in at entry level? Anything there you want to grab a hold of, my friend?
Yeah, yeah. I'll try to clean up your mess. So I'll connect the dots a little bit. I
Thank you. Jeff, you are doing an excellent job. I think you're really onto something with the way you've organized what I put together.
Well, thank you. Um, chat, Paul. I think that so going back to entry level, I think that the optimistic side of it is that we can see where, especially when we're talking about the diamond shape, where the entry level really can be that more and more people are coming in to supervise the AI task,
Mm-hmm.
and what is becoming then the entry level is the more human aspect of that, which is the critical thinking, the judgment, the learning of better prompts and codes, and maximizing of the of the AI process, right? So you're
Well,
learning how to
but you just
be.
said two separate things, though, there, Jeff. The human side and thinking about sort of what applies, sort of a almost meta level. I'm thinking, wow, I don't know if entry level folks coming out of college have the experience to do that yet. But then you said, but there's a technical, in my words, a technical aspect, better prompts and understanding more about how to use on the, I could argue that maybe coming out of college, they are primed and ready for that set of tasks. So it's almost like a mixed message. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think that we are doing a good job of teaching people critical thinking. Like I would, no, I come out of a liberal arts background, right? That's what I thought you got out of a college education. I don't know if that's still what everyone feels they're getting out of a college education. I will save that editorial for another time. But let's say, yes, you can get that. Certainly, people are being reared now in a world where they have the exposure to AI and are working with AI younger and younger to be able to have those skills coming out of college or high school to be able to help with the refinement and build and improve on that. And then hopefully also critical thinking skills that can get stronger through the job in evaluating exceptions and in looking for making recommendations and evaluating recommendations, whatever it can be, which are skills that with traditional entry level jobs are the things that you would develop and build up, right? So it's not like we expect it perfect out of the gate, but we would expect that to go.
Mm-hmm.
What is the challenge right now is that is a certain amount of trust that comes in to say that, hey, you didn't do these things that we're now having AI do. And yet I'm going to make you the supervisor of the thing. And our old mindset is, well, for you to be a supervisor of the lower level things, you should have had experience doing it. And that's why we're seeing all these demands for entry level roles with 3 or 4 years experience. And
Right.
we have to get out of that mindset. We have to realize, no, you don't have to have the hands on experience to be able to, because it's a different skill. It's a different, you're not managing someone who is and training that person how to do what you did. You're managing an AI system, and
So
you're
you're
managing
saying,
it at an entry level. At,
right.
at an entry level,
So your point is that job specifications are accurate for 5 to 10 years ago, and we're holding on to that. Either the hiring managers are holding on to that, or HR, or both, is hiring on to that. But if it's a new world, then the requirements for entry level has changed, and we're not seeing that.
right? And
Hmm.
that goes back to what the learning. The learning isn't how to write this whatever report that AI is now writing. The learning is how to evaluate the quality and the efficiency of that output. And that is
Mm-hmm.
something that could be an entry level learning. And so we need to change that mindset.
Yeah. Well, and my thought is that means the learning curve and the tolerance for mistakes in this new world. I don't know if that's favorable or not favorable. We've got a larger span of control for either a human manager, if we're talking about a diamond, or an AI manager, if we're talking about an hourglass. I don't know if there's going to be enough patience for people to learn what they need to learn. But I could certainly see your point that it's a person who's successful in this new modern world post AI probably has some different talents and skills as compared to the old world. I think I beat the gong.
Yeah, I can,
People people can't tell, but to my right, see, I've got this arm, and I just hit this gong over here.
yeah, because it's very real and not artificial in, at all.
That's an
Um,
intelligent. No one's talking about that, Jeff, and I'm so glad that you've brought it up.
all right, this is good. I'd love to pick up on the next rung of the ladder. So let's let people go have their vacation or their weekend or whatever's happening in their summer, and not choking on the smoke from Canada, which we are here in Buffalo. Have had some lovely orange days.
Sorry, that was my cigar. I'm really
Oh,
sorry about that. I'm
I
sorry.
and but we'll see you next week, and have a great weekend.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.